Hi everyone and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel and another Take 5 Art Challenge collaboration video. Today we're working with prompts chosen by the amazing Ali over at Handcrafted by Ali, and I'm also going to be using some really beautiful printables by Lucy, or Lucyoodledoo as her channel is. They are really beautiful and amazing work, and so you'll see me working with those a little bit later. For now I'm using my white gesso just to put a coat over my page, and then once I've dried that I'm going to take my Dilutions paint in white and I'm going to, using that same brush, just apply that quite thickly all over my pages. I did do 2 coats of this just to make sure that my page was a little bit more covered. I'm using actually a notebook or a sketch pad as my art journal this time, and so the paper's a little bit thinner and the paint has been showing through from different pages. So I'm then just going to dry that using my heat tool before I move on to using my, I think it's grey slate dilutions, or my grey dilutions paint, and I'm going to be using one of my Tim Holtz mini ink daubers just to fluff this over my page. I wanted to cover a majority of the pages, so I wanted to get some texture, and again I'm going to dry this one just to make sure that that's dry before I can add a second coat, just to deepen up the colour, as it was a little too patchy for what I wanted it to look like. I found that the paint went on so easily using these little mini ink daubers, so if you don't already use one, I recommend you give it a go. It was fun to use and I could make different patterns in the paint, so that's definitely something that's fun. Again, just using my heat tool to dry that, and I didn't dry this for very long. I found that there was a couple of times I thought the paint was wet and it actually wasn't, it was just a sheen, so I'm making sure to just go over it lightly. I'm then going to move on to my next part of my page. I'm going to use this cloud stencil and some white texture paste, and I'm just going to randomly place that, and I think I used maybe 3 or 4 clouds, but I'm going to keep the same formation of clouds and just move the stencil around the page. I do come back and add a few single clouds later on, and I also clean up the mess around the clouds so that they're a bit more bold. That the stencil I went underneath a little bit, but that doesn't matter, I'm going to clean it up afterwards. So there you go, you can see I've added quite a few different clouds now. And I do add single ones and then just some smaller ones as well. So I'm then going to dry that a little bit with my heat tool, and then I leave it to dry while I'm working on one of my next prompts, which is to use a napkin. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for the use a napkin, but I had a really fun idea that I was actually going to just use a normal white napkin like you use for your dinner, and then I would get messy and have some fun with my spray mists. I don't use them as much as I would like, so I thought I'm just going to have fun and spray them and see what happens. So I'm using 3 dilutions. I'm using bubblegum pink, the yellow, and I'm using a tiny bit of the black marble, but that was for splatters, and then I'm using my Tropic Teal Heidi Swap Colour Shine, which gives it such a beautiful shimmery mermaidy look. It's so beautiful. Now I'm going to be working on my amazing printables from Lucy. So she has lots of different bundles and packs over on her Etsy store, which I will definitely link below. I'm going to be working on the one with the little heads and the full bodies, and I'm just going to take my Spectrum Noir markers, which again I really don't use very often, and I'm just going to colour in their hair. I do a couple of them with my orange marker, I do a couple of them with blue hair, and then I do one that's like a grey blue colour hair. One of the other Take 5 ladies, Heba, over at My Little Journal, she also used some of Lucy's printables in a recent video, and I think she coloured them on watercolour cardstock or maybe just normal cardstock as well. I'm actually using this on the back of photo paper because I was using my alcohol markers. I didn't want something that would really bleed and go through the other side, so I thought I'd try printing on the back side of some photo paper, which has a kind of cardstock like texture. So I'm just going over and over, and I used multiple layers of the pens and nothing came through the other side. So sometimes it's fun to just experiment with the different products that you do have and to see what they turn out like. While I'm still colouring those in, I want to say a huge thank you to Ali for choosing such fun prompts this month. It was a little bit of a thinker to some of the prompts as to what I would use it with, but it was so much fun. Her prompts were to add butterflies and dragonflies, to use a napkin, to use shades of black and white, to add paint with a gift card or credit card, and to add paint using bubble wrap. And I believe I used all of those prompts and it was so much fun, so thank you again, Ali. I really enjoyed this month. So I decided I was going to give the ladies a colour on their face, as they already have all of their beautiful features, but I couldn't colour their hair and leave their face blank. It felt weird. I don't have a skin tone, as I don't have very many markers, so I decided I was going to use a light grey, and I used the same light grey on all of the ladies, and then I used a slightly different darker grey marker to add some features. So some of them had rosy cheeks, some of them had prominent cheekbones. So I'm just going over that, and then I'm going to do some darker accents on the hair. So I'm using a darker red to go over the red lady's hair and a darker blue to just add some lines to the ladies with blue hair. And then I believe I'm going to fussy cut them out, which thankfully I won't show you on camera all of the process. It took me forever. If you've seen any of my videos before, you know fussy cutting is not my forte, but it is easier since I have these scissors, I will say. So if you are like me and you find fussy cutting difficult and normally you would chop something important off, get yourself a pair of these scissors. These ones are spring-loaded ones from Fiskars and they are amazing for cutting out little details. Now, going on to my next prompt, I'm going to be using the Bubblegum Pink Dilutions paint, and instead of using a gift card or credit card, I'm just going to use my little scraper tool. Technically it's cheating a little on the prompt, but this is the only thing I had within reach of me that kind of was the same, so I'm just going to use that, and I'm just swiping on little tiny bits of pink, and then I'm using a feathery paintbrush just to buff them up a little bit, to mold them in a little bit, but also just to soften the edges. I wanted them to, you know, look like it was dashes of colour coming through clouds. I didn't want it to look like I just wiped a stripe on top of my page. I'm then just taking a baby wipe and wiping off the brush and my scraper tool, and then I'm going to use my yellow, and I'm also going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a slightly smaller stripe of yellow, and then again I'm going to use that brush, and in fact actually I use the baby wipe and I just rub that in a little bit and spread that colour. I find the yellow really spread further than the pink did, so I ended up with huge strips of yellow, which I'm glad I only used a tiny piece for. And then I'm going to move on to the next prompt, which is to use bubble wrap. I'm going to take a big piece of bubble wrap and my white dilutions paint, and I'm only using what's in the lid. I have learned using this technique that less paint gives a better effect. I used to use more paint and it just didn't look right, but I'm just spreading that throughout the page. Some of them are having a lot of dots and some I'm just pressing very lightly to get a few. So then I'm going to use my heat tool and I'm going to dry that, just as I want to be able to not smudge it. I didn't actually dry this enough and I did smudge a few of the white dots, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't show in the final product. So I'm now just ripping up some of the napkin. I did try and stamp on it, but it didn't have the right look and it took me forever to try and fussy cut a layout of tissue out. So I'm just ripping them up and I'm going to be placing those where I've placed the pink and yellow. I'm just going to use my like gel adhesive medium. It's not quite the same as the gel matte medium. It's very glossy, so I tend to use it sparingly, but I'm just going to use that to stick down these napkins, and I'm just going to go over the edges with it as well to make sure that the napkins stay down. And I think I'm going to show you a couple of those, and some of them I stuck that on the paint behind them, some of them I actually did the whole piece of napkin, but they did tend to disintegrate when I used the whole napkin. So if you are going to try this, that is something to bear in mind. I think that mine only did that really because I'd used so much ink on them and they had been soaked and then crisped with the heat tool. So maybe don't do exactly what I did. But I'm then going to stick my little ladies down, again using that gel medium because they've got that glossy photo paper on the back. They stuck really well, so I'm just going to stick all of those down. I'm going to have one lady in each of the little cloud clusters, and I'm just basically making sure I have not the same hair coloured ladies next to each other. I'm then just going to use a tiny piece of this gel medium over the top to seal those just as well, so that they don't bleed or leak into each other if the book is closed. And then we are going to move on. I'm then taking my Distress Spray ink in Brushed Pewter and adding a really generous amount of splatters. I love this ink and love the splatters, so I added quite a lot. You may also notice in the background I've added a beautiful butterfly stamp, and I've applied that to all of the little clusters. For some reason it's cut off in my footage, so you didn't see me do that, but I just used some black StazOn ink and I put one of those in all of the little clusters around the page and one in the middle. I'm now taking a dark blue Spectrum Noir marker and I'm just handwritten a title for this page that reads Her Head in the Clouds, and this page really reminds me of a beautiful sky with light peeking through, and also I was always told I had my head in the clouds. Any of you other people that have, you know, ridiculous dreams and aspirations for your life, then you'll know maybe what I'm talking about. It's also just a really fun quote and I really loved this page. I'm just using the end of my marker to add some little dots, almost like mini splatters, but I'm just dotting them on, and that's actually going to be the page finish. So thank you very much for watching this video. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Please don't forget to check out the other ladies. They are amazing and you will love their pages. I do every month. Thank you again also to Ali for the fun prompts, and then also to Lucy for these amazing printables. Her link for her shop and channel will be down below, as for all of the other ladies, so please do check them out. If you've enjoyed this video, I really hope you'd subscribe to my channel if you've enjoyed it, and I will see you very soon with another video.